I walked off a six-figure job with no plan B. Hi everyone, Tina Kamani here with a little update. Again, the video thing is still new to me, so bear with me, trying my best. Last time we were here, I talked about how I was handling. Oh, there's a dog barking in the background. So in my last video, I talked about how I landed a new job and I was really nervous because of everything that was going on in the world, like if I would actually get to start. And I did, and I started, and I very quickly realized it wasn't for me. However, still did the best work to my ability and was doing actually pretty well in the job. And then it came to a screeching halt. So when I left, it was during the height of the BLM protests. There was a lot of unrest surrounding George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, as there should have been. And my company, I shouldn't say my company, the CEO of the company that I previously worked for sent out an internal message that I found insensitive and disturbing. And from my point of view, it was very clear that he picked a side. And working for a man that felt the way he felt made me sick to my stomach, to the point where about 10 minutes before I was supposed to have a meeting, I was like, I cannot do this. And I know for some that might sound unprofessional or whatever, what have you, but I'm a human. I'm a human being with real emotions, and we were going through a lot at the time. And by we, I mean Black people. And it should be all people, but it was especially heartbreaking to see a lot of the stuff I saw on TV, and to have a company to kind of diminish that and focus on the wrong things and not really care about the actual people involved made me sick to my stomach, to the point where I was like, I don't think I could work here. But yeah, back to that. So I talked to my boss and I was like, hey, I'm very disturbed by the messages that was just sent out. I need a minute. And she was actually very understanding, and she gave me the rest of the week off to think about it. So the next morning, I had already had it in my mind that, like, you know, I was going to quit, and this was not the type of man that I wanted to work for. But my supervisor came back to me and she was very understanding, and she was like, hey, before you quit, just like, you know, if you don't want to work for him, like, I'll hire you as like an independent contractor. You could just come work with the team and blah, blah, blah. Maybe part-time if that's what you prefer. And she told me to think about it over the weekend until, you know, think about it over the weekend. And then when I come back on Monday, when I sign in on Monday, we could have a discussion about it. So I took her up on her offer, obviously, because she's allowing me to get paid for the next few days and I don't have income and I'm a single mother. So I said, okay, I would think it over. During that time, one of my team members decided to reach out to me. And I don't want to relive the whole thing over again, but it was just an irritating conversation, borderline harassment, because I told her to stop messaging me and she continued. And if you do want to know more about that, if you check the link below, I have a link to my blog post where I wrote out the whole transcript. So knock yourself out if you're interested. But after all of that drama throughout the weekend, I was like, this is not the environment that I want to work in. Like, I don't want to work for a CEO that has these beliefs. I don't want to work with team members that are going to make my life a lot more difficult during one of the more challenging years of my life. And I decided to go right then and there. So as of that Monday, that was it. And I left what I thought I wanted my whole life. Like, you know, 6 figures by 30, that was like a big thing for me. And here I am just turning, you know, a couple months after turning 31. And I'm realizing that that number, that benchmark that I just had to meet wasn't as important. And I realized there is a point where, you know, not that there is a point, but at a certain point, how you feel, your morals, things that you stand by mean more than the money. So I decided to quit. And I just find it funny because I've been like wishing and praying for a while. I kept saying, even with my therapist, I was talking to her and I'm like, in a perfect world, I could just take a couple of months off to just breathe and relax and just take care of my mental health, because I have been struggling, honestly, my whole life with mental health issues. And I just needed a break, and I was burnt out, and I prayed for a break for years, and I finally got one. Not in the way I thought, and not during the time that I thought, because at a time where people are losing their jobs and their livelihood left and right, I kind of just left the job. And I realized that comes from a place of privilege. Like, I knew I would be okay. Just because of like the background, the industry that I worked in is pretty in high demand right now. And I know, God forbid, if it came down to it, I had family. However, I don't want you to think that I just completely like relied on my family and I was like, I'll be fine, they're gonna pay for things. No. I had money saved up, so I knew I would last till in a perfect world, I wanted to be unemployed from June to August and then maybe find a job August. I knew I could live comfortably until October, and I knew I could make it to December, but at that point, like, I'd be worried if I didn't have a job. So that was the plan. Time off, I've been thinking about like what makes me happy and what jobs I had that I was the happiest. And I realized I really missed higher education. So prior to joining the corporate workforce, I worked in higher ed for, I want to say 6 years after graduation. And I also worked in higher ed kind of while I was in college as well. And any job I had surrounding education just made me happy. The pay wasn't the best, I'll be honest. Educators deserve a hell of a lot more, but it made me happy. And I knew I wanted to take a job in education. So I decided that I would give myself to the end of August. I would apply to nothing but education jobs here and there. And if by August I don't have any like bites on education, because it is a weird time right now, that I would look for jobs in corporate, because at the end of the day, I do need to feed myself and my child. Which, by the way, my son moved back in with me during all of this transition. So it has been a wild couple months. But yeah, so August rolls around. I've been on countless interviews. Yeah. So I actually got 2 jobs in education, 2 offers in education, one a full-time and one was like a little per diem thing to do during November and December. And both of them reneged on their offers. So that was a hard situation to navigate, and it was a bit discouraging, but you know, I kept on. And I actually got an offer at a great company. And again, it's still early, but so far I love it. And I knew that I wanted to work for a company where the people and the culture were great. Like, if I could wake up and not dread going to work every day, that was fine with me. Obviously, I had to take a rather large pay cut, switching from corporate to education. But again, I think for my mental health, it was just the best option that I could pick. Yeah, so I just feel like these past few months have been all about self-discovery. It's something I talk about or I write about a lot in my blog posts, about how, like, growing up, I didn't really feel like my life was mine. I felt like I lived for my parents, and then immediately after college, I was engaged and then married, and I lived for my husband, and then I lived for my son, which again, I still do live for my son, and he will always be first. However, through all of that, I realized I never took care of myself, and I never figured out the things that I wanted to do. I kind of just always operated in crisis mode because that was what I grew up with. So I kind of felt comfort in the chaos, which, as I'm saying it, sounds a little weird, but it's the truth. Like, I know in hardship, I'll pull through and I'll survive. So like, I never thought about, like, in my calmness, in my serenity, what do I like? What do I enjoy? It was more so about make the money so you could build a life you want. I learned that there's more to life than just ticking off those little boxes that I had of things I wanted to accomplish. This is my life, and I should actually enjoy what I do and enjoy my time here. And if I feel like I'm in an environment that is not conducive to my well-being, that is not great for my mental health, that the people that I work for or work with are in direct opposition of who I stand for and what I believe in, I don't have to be there. Like, I don't. And I realize saying that comes from a place of privilege, again, because I know that I have family and people and things to fall back on. But the fact that I do have that privilege, I don't need to be there, and I could use my privilege for good and for the betterment of me. And if I'm making myself happy and trying to make myself my best whole self and make myself a better person, that's gonna be good for my son and for the development of his self. And plus, I don't want my kid to grow up thinking like it's okay to be miserable as long as you're making money, and it's okay to accept mistreatment as long as you're making money. Like, that's not okay, because you could be in a happy, healthy environment and still make income. Like, you know, yes, I took a huge pay cut, but you know, I'm fortunate enough to still be able to afford my rent and my bills. And like, yes, it's not what I'm necessarily used to, but it's livable. And I feel like being in a space that I actually enjoy, that it gives me like purpose, is gonna be better for me in the long run. The money will come. I could get involved in different things and actually be passionate about the things I do. And for me, money or not, at this stage in my life at least, that's more important. And it's funny because if you would have asked me this 2 years ago, I would have been like, you're insane. How would you leave a $100,000 a year plus job, stack the money and then leave when you want to? And that's kind of the path that I've been on since I started my career. Like, make the money, on to the next, find something that's that'll pay you a little bit more. But the reality is I was unhappy. I was super miserable, and it's unfortunate that it ended the way that it did, but I regret nothing. And I realized that I do have a tipping point, and my morals mean more to me than the paycheck. And that's why I just had to leave. My main takeaway is you don't have to remain where you are. You could take the necessary steps to leave. I wouldn't necessarily advise to do it the way I did it, because again, like I said, I had people to fall back on and things to fall back on if it didn't work out. But you can plan your escape, whether that be applying to a new job or making new connections with people who are in the field or like in the realm of like what you want to do. I would advise to do those things. My message to everyone would just be to live for yourself, which is something that I struggle with daily. You would think 31 years old, of course I have my own kid, of course I'm living for myself, but I still struggle like with just trying to make sure I don't disappoint my parents. And I know that might be a cultural thing as well, but it's big to me. And like, I never wanted to disappoint my parents, and I'm finally getting to that age where I'm realizing like, I have to live for me. My parents lived their life, I need to live mine the way I see fit. And it's hard to break out of that. And like, I find myself lately, like I've been on like a social media cleanse, and I've like, you know, limited my interactions with a lot of different people just because I'm trying to focus on what it is that I want. And for so long, like I ignored my feelings or ignored the things that I want, and I kind of just went with, you know, whether it be my parents or my partner, to try to not make waves. And I'm realizing that was to my detriment. And I have a voice and I deserve to use it, and I can use it however I see fit. So in the past few months, I used my voice to walk away from what I felt was 100% going to be a toxic work environment. And it was, after I got that notice, that email about what the CEO said, which by the way, after I quit, I noticed about like a couple of weeks after, the CEO sent out like a public message finally to address the protests and everything that was going on. And it was 100% different from the one that went out internally. So I feel like I made the right decision, and that is not the type of place that I want to work for. But yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble on for however long this video is. And yeah, please, if you feel so inclined, check out my blog, tinakamani.com. I also do a little bit of travel writing you know, what's going on in the world, but I did travel quite a bit, and I probably have like 5 more stories to upload that I'm behind on. But yeah, I have a travel blog, so ladyjetsetter.com if you're interested in travel. But thank you for listening to me ramble on for X amount of minutes.